I was sitting in the back of the ballroom when the bride raised her glass and said I saved him from that broken woman. People laughed. Real sharp, clinking glass laughter. Some nodded like she had delivered the punchline of the night. A few even raised their flutes in my direction, not that they knew I was the woman she meant. But I knew. God, I knew. My face didn't flush from shame. It flushed from heat. From every memory I had buried deep, clawing its way back to the surface all at once. The silence, the bleeding, the door slamming shut without a backward glance. But I didn't cry, didn't flinch, didn't give them what they came for. I just sat there, fingers clenched in my lap, next to my uncle, who always said Damon's smile was too slick, like oil over water. And through all the glitter and chandeliers, through the white orchids, and the curated joy, a movement caught my eye. A girl in a black apron. She walked like she was wading through something thick through the lies, maybe. She stopped near the head table hands, shaking, then took off her catering cap. And in the clearest voice I'd ever heard her use, she said, "I'm his daughter. And I have something to say." The entire room stopped breathing. Champagne flutes hovered mid-air. Forks froze mid-cut. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't going to be just another wedding. A month before that night, I was standing at my kitchen counter, sorting junk mail and unpaid bills when I found it. A thick envelope. Ivory gold embossed heavy, like it had something to prove. No return address. Just my name, Eliza Hart, in calligraphy I didn't recognize. I knew what it was before I opened it. My stomach dropped like I'd swallowed a stone. And when I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out the contents, it confirmed everything I feared. Damon Reeves was getting married. To someone else. And somehow he wanted me to see it. I stared at that card for a long time. First I thought it was a mistake. Then maybe it was pity. Then I realized it was something worse. It was a warning, a performance, a glittering declaration that said, "I've moved on and I want you to know it." We hadn't spoken in 3 years. Not since he left me in the middle of the night after I lost the baby. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a note on the fridge that read, "I can't do this anymore. I need to breathe." He packed a duffel bag and vanished. That was it. But it wasn't just me he left. It was Zara too, his daughter, from a woman who walked out years before I met him. She was 5 when she came to live with us. And from the second she grabbed my hand and called me Mom, I stopped being just the woman Damon loved. I became her person. When he left, she didn't, not by accident, by choice. The weeks after Damon disappeared felt like dragging my body through quicksand. I stopped checking mirrors. I stopped answering texts. But I still packed Zara's lunch, still braided her hair, still sat through math homework while trying not to let the tears fall where she could see them. One night, I was sitting on the bathroom floor after another call from a debt collector, knees to chest phone screen cracked, when she knocked softly and came in. She sat next to me, barely up to my ribs, and handed me a peanut butter sandwich. "You forgot to eat," she said. That moment, not big, not loud, cracked something in me. Because she hadn't given up on me, so I couldn't give up on her. That's how the healing began. Not with some grand speech or revelation, but with a 10-year-old girl handing me a sandwich while I tried to hold the world together with duct tape. So when the wedding invite came, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just put it on the kitchen table and stared at it for 3 days. Zara was the one who finally picked it up. "You should go," she said, voice even. "For what?" "So I can watch him start a new life with someone richer, shinier." She looked right at me, full of something I hadn't felt in a long time. "No," she said, "so he sees what he lost." I didn't say yes right away. Truth is, I didn't know how to say yes to something that still made my hands shake. But Zara was right. Deep down, I knew she was. I had spent years surviving Damon's absence. Now I had a chance to face it, to look it in the eye. So I called Uncle Joe, told him I needed a ride. He didn't even ask why, just said, "What time?" He always hated Damon. Said he had too many polite words and not enough real ones. He once called him a velvet ghost, charming hollow, and always halfway out the door. We pulled up outside the Ridgewood Grand Hotel on a cloudy Saturday afternoon. The kind of day where everything feels on the edge of rain. My fingers trembled as I clutched the envelope, even though I wasn't holding anything inside it anymore. Zara was already inside. She'd signed up to work the event weeks ago, claimed it was for the paycheck. But I knew better. "I just want to make sure the shrimp doesn't suck," she joked. But her eyes told the truth. She wasn't just there to serve appetizers. She was there for me. I stood in the entryway too long. The place was dressed like a magazine spread gold, everything white orchids in silver vases, candlelight dancing on polished crystal. It was nauseatingly beautiful. I saw Uncle Joe near the back. He gave me a small nod. The kind that said, "You're doing fine, even if it feels like hell." I slipped into the chair beside him, barely breathing. Tried not to look up. But then I did. And there he was, Damon Reeves. The man I had once believed would be the father of my children. Still broad-shouldered, still in love with the sound of his own voice. He was laughing with someone holding a whiskey in one hand, his other tucked into his suit pocket, like he had nothing to carry. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was warm, charismatic, grounded. But I knew. I knew the stillness behind his smile, the emptiness he hid behind polished teeth. He had that same smile the night he left. And then I saw her, Marla Sinclair, gleaming blonde, all silk and sparkle. She looked like someone who knew she was being photographed at all times, every gesture choreographed, every laugh an ad. She leaned into Damon with practiced affection, like she needed the world to see her touch him, as if her grip made her victorious. They exchanged vows beneath a giant floral arch. His voice didn't waver, not once. Mine did, though, inside my own head, because watching him say forever to someone else, it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It didn't pierce like betrayal. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life from the wrong seat. They kissed. People clapped. Someone behind me sniffled like it was a Nicholas Sparks novel, and I sat there, water glass in hand, lips tight, still breathing. Zara passed by once with a tray of bruschetta. Our eyes met. She gave me the tiniest wink. That single second grounded me more than all the therapy in the world. Then came the toasts. The best man rambled about Damon's big heart and loyalty, and I had to stop myself from choking. The maid of honor cried. A cousin shared a slideshow of baby pictures, one of which included Damon in a Santa suit grinning, like the kind of dad he never tried to be for Zara. And then Marla stood, champagne flute in hand, gown shimmering under the chandeliers. Her voice sweet at first, until it wasn't. When I met Damon, she said he was kind, but hurt, wounded, damaged by someone who didn't know how to love him right. My heart thudded. She didn't look at him. She looked at the crowd, then right at me, dead in the face, as if daring me to move. He told me he had been with someone who almost broke him, she continued. She didn't understand him. She left him empty. People laughed. Not forced, not polite. They really laughed. She almost ruined him, Marla added with a soft giggle. But I saved him, and now he's finally where he belongs. Glasses clinked. Someone even clapped. And I sat there, still, burning, not with shame, but with something older, deeper. That hot white sting of being rewritten. They didn't know about the night Damon cried on our bathroom floor after losing custody of Zara. They didn't know about the job interviews I prepped him for, the lunches I packed the nights I held him when he didn't want to be touched. They didn't know about the ultrasound photo in my drawer, the one I never got to frame. I wasn't broken. I was abandoned. And somehow he got to twist the story and hand it to a woman who'd only known the clean version of him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I stayed. And then I saw her, Zara. One of the waitresses had stopped moving. She was standing still, eyes locked on Marla, her jaw clenched, her fists balled, and then she walked, right past the guests, right to the front. She took off her cap, held it in her hand, and said, "I'm his daughter, and I have something to say." Zara's voice cracked through the air like a crack of thunder in a wedding gown storm. "I'm his daughter," she said again, louder this time. From before he met her, from before he left, from before he decided we didn't exist, the room didn't just go quiet. It turned. Chairs shifted, heads swiveled. Some guests looked uncomfortable, others wide-eyed with morbid curiosity. The same people who'd just laughed at Marla's speech now clutched their champagne glasses like shields. Marla's face drained of all its polish. She blinked once, twice, then stammered, "Wait, what?" "I'm Damon's daughter," Zara said, stepping closer to the mic. "And that woman you just mocked, she's the one who raised me." Her curls had fallen loose from her bun. Her apron was wrinkled. She didn't look composed. She looked real. Alive. Furious. She's not broken, Zara said. She's the reason I have a home. The reason I eat. The reason I passed 8th grade math and survived my first heartbreak. Gasps. Audible ones. A waiter stopped mid-aisle tray, hovering in the air. Even the string quartet froze in place, like someone had cut their strings. I couldn't move. Everything inside me was tight and loose at the same time. Like something holy and horrifying was being torn open right in front of me. Zara wasn't reading from anything. She hadn't rehearsed this. This was instinct, fire, truth. She watched him leave, Zara said. Not just her. Me. He left us both. And when people asked where my dad was, I lied and said he was on a business trip because it was easier than saying he didn't want us. A ripple of whispers moved across the room. Someone near the front actually stood up, phone in hand, filming. Damon finally moved. He stood cautious, slow, like he'd just woken up in a nightmare. Zara, he started. Don't, she cut in, voice sharp. You don't get to say my name now. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but didn't. Just stared at her like she was a stranger holding his history. When I sent you birthday cards, they came back unopened, she said. When I emailed you from Mom's laptop, you didn't respond. Not even to say no, not even to block me. You just ignored me. Her voice broke on the last word, and I felt it, like something inside my chest collapsed in on itself. He turned to look at me. The first time since we arrived, his face, the practiced confidence, was gone. He looked smaller, not sorry, just exposed. I didn't look away, because this wasn't about making him feel bad. This was about not protecting his silence anymore. Zara kept going, and now she said, staring at Marla, you stand here and talk about her like she's some pathetic woman who almost ruined him. Marla opened her mouth, closed it, no words. She didn't ruin him, Zara continued. She stayed. She worked 2 jobs. She cried into pillows so I wouldn't hear. She showed up to every parent-teacher meeting, even when she had holes in her shoes and bills and collections. Zara's hands were shaking. Her shoulders rose and fell with every breath. And you want to call her broken? She asked. You want to erase everything she did, so you can pretend you fixed a man who was never willing to be whole. You could hear the breath being held in the room. Damon tried again. His voice was quiet now, strained. Zara, this isn't the time. She tilted her head. Oh, now it matters what time it is. He flinched. Where was that concern when I was 10, waiting by the phone for a call that never came? No answer. She stepped closer. Every step louder than the last. You know what I used to tell myself, she asked. That you were dead. That something horrible happened to you. Because the idea that you were alive and just didn't care, that was worse. He looked down at the floor. I forgive you, she said, soft, clear. He looked up, startled. But not for you, she added. For me. Because carrying your absence is exhausting. And I'm done. I don't know how I was still standing, but I was. And when she looked at me, eyes glassy but proud, she said something I'll never forget. She made me this way, Zara said, pointing at me. She gave me my voice. She taught me not to shrink, not to disappear for anyone's comfort. That was it. That moment, louder than anything she'd said before. No mic drop needed, just the truth. Marla finally snapped. This is insane, she muttered. You ruined our wedding. You ruined it, Zara shot back. The second you built it on lies. Then she turned and walked toward me. I reached out and took her hand. It felt like lightning and safety, and every ounce of love we had ever traded in silence. And we walked. Out of the ballroom, past the stunned guests, past the music that had died mid-chord. Behind us, Damon called out once, Zara. She didn't turn. Outside, the air was cool and still. Zara exhaled hard like she'd been holding her breath for years. She looked up at me, cheeks flushed, chest heaving. I wasn't going to let her humiliate you, she said. Not after everything. I touched her face. You didn't have to do that. Yes, she said, I did. And then I had to show them what love actually looks like. The next morning, I woke up to messages. My phone vibrated nonstop like it had caught a fever. Not just from friends, but people I hadn't heard from in years. Some sent 3-word apologies. Some just said, you were so brave. But here's the truth, I didn't feel brave. Not at the wedding, not during Zara's speech. I felt cracked open, like someone had taken everything I'd kept quiet and poured light into it. The video hit TikTok within 12 hours. Grainy, shaky phone footage. Someone had tagged it. Waitress shuts down bride's insult with epic speech. I didn't watch it. I didn't need to. I had lived it. Damon never reached out. No apology. No email. No carefully worded excuse about what he meant or what he'd been going through. And honestly, that was a gift. It saved me from wondering. His silence confirmed what I already knew. He was never coming back. Not as a father. Not as a man. Marla's name popped up in online gossip for a week or two. Enough to sting. Enough to mark her as the woman whose wedding collapsed under the weight of its own lie. A friend who worked at the venue told me Marla left before the honeymoon send-off. Apparently, she moved out within the month. Whether they stayed together or not, I didn't care. Because this story was never about them. It was about us. Me and Zara. The family we became after the one we were promised fell apart. Something shifted after that night. At home, things were still simple, still tight, but there was space to breathe now. A new energy humming beneath the ordinary. Zara started walking taller. I caught her talking to herself in the mirror one night, practicing a speech. Not for a school project, just because. Are you preparing for something? I asked, drying my hands with a dish towel. She shrugged. Maybe. I've been thinking about starting a podcast. I laughed. A podcast. For girls, she said, who think they don't have a voice, who don't get to say things at weddings, unless they force the moment. I didn't have words, just pulled her close and whispered, do it. As for me, something else cracked open. For years, I didn't talk about what happened. There's a shame in being left, especially after loss. People treat you like your sadness is contagious. They start talking softer around you. Stop inviting you to dinners. They don't want to see the version of themselves that could fall apart. But after the wedding, I realized something. I wasn't weak because I broke. I was strong because I rebuilt. So I started writing again. First just scribbles in a notebook, then a short essay for a parenting blog. It got published. The comments flooded in, strangers, mothers, daughters, thanking me for putting into words what they'd carried in silence. One woman wrote, I thought I was the only one. You reminded me I wasn't invisible. That turned into a blog. Then a weekly newsletter. Then I got a message from a community center in Midtown. Would you consider leading a circle for women healing from abandonment? At first I hesitated. Imposter syndrome whispered, who are you to guide anyone? But I said yes anyway, because maybe what I needed wasn't a stage, just a room, a circle, a space where silence didn't win. A few months later, I registered the nonprofit The Second Thread. We hosted writing nights, story circles, offered free counseling to women navigating divorce, grief, emotional abuse. We didn't fix people. We reminded them they weren't broken. I wasn't trying to build an empire. I just didn't want anyone else to feel as alone as I had that first night on the bathroom floor. Zara came to some of the circles. Sometimes she just sat in the back sketching in her notebook. Sometimes she spoke. I remember one night a woman in her 40s said through tears, I stayed because I thought leaving would make me the bad guy. Zara looked up and said, my dad left, and he was still the bad guy. The room went quiet. Then someone laughed softly, not at her, with her, and everyone exhaled. We celebrated her 17th birthday a few months after the wedding. Nothing fancy, just cake, music, a couple of friends in our tiny living room. She made a toast. I didn't grow up in a perfect family, she said, but I grew up loved, and I think that matters more. Later that night, after everyone left, she helped me clean up. I was at the sink, elbow deep in soap suds, when she said it. You know, she began, I used to wish my real mom had stayed. My hands stilled. But now I get it. She continued, maybe she left because I was supposed to end up with you. I turned around, didn't speak, just dried my hands and wrapped her in the tightest hug I could give. The kind that says everything you don't have words for. Because the truth is, some love stories aren't romantic. Some aren't born in candlelight or declarations. Some are built over spelling tests, hospital visits, and peanut butter sandwiches on bathroom floors. Zara didn't come from me, but she chose me, and I chose her. Again and again and again. I ran into someone who'd been at the wedding not long after everything happened. We were in line at a coffee shop. She was 2 people ahead of me, ordering a latte with oat milk. She turned, saw me, and her eyes widened. Eliza, I nodded. She stepped closer. That was you right at the wedding. I said nothing, just let the silence do its thing. She lowered her voice. I just want you to know, everyone's talking about it. Not in a bad way. People are rethinking things. Then she hesitated. What she said, it was cruel. We laughed because we didn't know. I just nodded again. Because that's the thing about cruelty. When it's disguised as elegance, it fools people until someone calls it out. I never saw Marla again. A friend told me she tried to spin the wedding fallout as a misunderstanding online. But once the video spread, that spin didn't stick. The bride who insulted the broken woman and got publicly called out by her stepdaughter. That became her legacy, not the monogrammed napkins or imported orchids. Someone said she started over in a different city. Someone else said she tried therapy. Maybe both are true, maybe neither. It didn't matter. She wasn't my story to carry anymore. Damon sent one email. Short, clumsy. It arrived 3 months after the wedding. Subject line, I'm sorry. He said he didn't know how to explain what happened. That he thought disappearing would hurt less than failing out loud. That he thought I was stronger. That I'd be okay. I thought you'd be okay. That line stuck to my ribs like something spoiled. I didn't reply. Because I wasn't going to validate the kind of man who mistakes my survival for a reason to leave. Zara and I built new routines. Mornings filled with shared silence over tea. Afternoons where she worked on her podcast while I drafted blog posts. Our life wasn't shiny. It wasn't wrapped in gold trim. But it was steady and real. And that was enough. One evening, I was leading a writing circle at the second thread. We were halfway through a prompt when a woman named Camille raised her hand. She said, "How do you know when it's okay to let go of anger?" I didn't answer right away. Then I told her about the time I hugged Zara in our tiny kitchen. How I held her like a lifeline and thought this is what I got instead of closure. Sometimes I said you don't get peace through understanding. You get it through choosing yourself. She nodded. Wrote that down. So did half the room. Months passed. One night, Zara came home glowing not literally, but lit up from the inside. She'd been invited to speak on a panel for young creators using their voice to make change. They said I was brave, she told me, dropping her bag by the door. You are, I said. She paused. No, I'm loud. I'm direct. But I wasn't always brave. You were? I just borrowed it. I didn't respond. Just reached over and squeezed her hand. She said, I'm going to talk about you. Is that okay? Only if you promise not to make me sound too heroic. She grinned. No danger of that. We spent her 18th birthday at the beach. Just the two of us, feet in the sand, plastic forks digging into store-bought cake. The kind of ordinary day that feels sacred when you've lived through chaos. She looked out at the water and said, I think I'm ready to find her. Who I asked, confused. My birth mom. The wind picked up. My fingers tightened around the fork. She looked at me. I'll always belong to you. That's not what this is about. I just want to know the beginning of the story. I nodded, slowly, carefully. Okay, I said, and when you do, I'll be right here. Because that's what love is, sometimes not clinging, but standing back far enough for someone to grow without letting them drift away. The last time Damon tried to call Zara declined. No drama, no yelling. Just a quiet, no thanks pressed into a screen. He sent a message afterward. She let it sit unread. Not out of hate, out of understanding. He had told his story through absence. Now she was telling hers through boundaries. I was closing up the office at the second thread one night when I saw a small envelope on the table. No name, just 2 words, thank you. Inside was a handwritten note. Your story saved me from mine. I left him. I brought my daughter with me. I'm scared, but I'm not silent anymore. That's when I cried. Not for Damon, not for Marla, not even for what we lost. I cried because the silence had cracked for someone else too. Now when people ask what happened, I say this. He left, we stayed, and we rose. That's the part they never see coming. Not the heartbreak, not the betrayal, but the fact that we're still here, stronger, louder, together. They tried to write me out of the story, but I stayed long enough to become the author instead. They tried to erase us with silence, with smiles, with a rewritten story. But silence doesn't make truth disappear, it just delays it. And when the moment came, we didn't shout. We stood. Because some legacies aren't built from love that lasts. They're built from the love that stayed. I wasn't the woman he left behind. I was the one who kept going. And she, the girl he thought would forget him, remembered everything. We weren't broken. We were undeniable. And in the end, the room remembered our names, not his.